My medical practice is not original. As a matter of fact, it was described in the first chapter of Daniel in the Bible. Daniel was talking to his overseer and explaining that his men were sick, and what he wanted to do was to put them on pulses and water, which are vegetables and water, for 10 days and see what happened. And so they did that. And in 10 days, he described their health and appearance much better than those who continue to eat the royal food, the rich food. So, you know, this is something that people have observed throughout human history and something well documented in the Bible.
I began on the Hallelujah diet in March of 2000 following a diagnosis for cervical cancer. I had a radical hysterectomy. The pathology report revealed that the cancer had spread into my lymph. My treatment was to be aggressive chemo and radiation, and just prior to beginning that, a friend of mine introduced me to the Hallelujah diet. And I immediately began on the program, and in December returned to my doctor and was given a clean bill of health. And so now I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. I plan to continue the Hallelujah diet forever.
My husband says, I have my wife back. And then he corrected himself and he said, no, I have a new wife back, and 30 pounds lighter.
Arthritis is 95% healed. I have very little pain at all. I have the mobility back. The energy level that I have is way up. I am raising grandsons, and so I need that. The antidepressants are no longer. After 30 years, I have been able to get off of antidepressants. I take no medication whatsoever. I just stay strictly on the diet, and I expect to be totally healed within the next 6 months. I believe within 2 years, after hearing Rhonda Malcolmus's similar program, that I also will be totally healed. And I have been dealing with this now for about 40 years, all of these things. And now they're gone. Everything is totally gone. So I thank Dr. Malcolmus, because this has just been a real miracle in my life. I have suffered so many years with so much pain that I didn't know what it was like to live without it. And now it's gone.
God placed within each one of us a beautiful self-healing mechanism. And when we bring conditions conducive to healing about within, the body will almost always heal itself of whatever physical problems it was experiencing. For the next few minutes, discover with me how we can live a healthy, disease-free life.
Life is filled with rich possibilities at every stage of the constant renewal going on inside you. Literally every moment of your life, in each one of the 100 trillion cells that make up the human body. Of all of nature's miracles, the human body is the most amazing. Journey with us as we discover the miraculous, self-healing body. Our guests in this program include Dr. Neil Bernard, President of the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, a nationwide group of physicians that promote preventative medicine. Dr. Bernard is a pioneer in the field of health and nutrition and educates people about the healing aspects of diet and lifestyle. Dr. Joel Furman, a board-certified family physician who specializes in prevention and reversal of disease through nutritional methods. He is the author of Fasting and Eating for Health. Dr. John McDougall, a board-certified internist and noted authority on diet and lifestyle. He is the author of 10 best-selling books related to diet and lifestyle. He currently teaches the program he created, the McDougall Program, at the St. Helena Center for Health in St. Helena, California. Dr. Russell Blaylock, a board-certified neurosurgeon, author of Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills. He currently conducts nutritional consultations and publishes numerous articles in peer-reviewed journals. Finally, our host is Reverend George Malcolmus, who founded Hallelujah Acres after overcoming colon cancer and other health-related issues simply by changing his diet over 25 years ago.
The human body is a truly remarkable machine. Starting when the body is nothing but a microscopic embryo, all of the plans for what that body will ultimately become are hidden in the chromosomes. It's a wonderful blueprint for allowing that body to grow and to develop and to mature. And there are construction crews within the body that allow the bones to form, the muscles to develop, and the skin covering to grow, and all the internal organs to develop and mature, but also to know when to stop growing so that all the parts can fit together as a wonderful whole. And even better, when something is damaged and needs to be repaired, we break a bone, or we tear a muscle, or we get a cut on our skin, we have inbuilt mechanisms to actually bring those bones back together. It's not a cast on a broken arm that heals us. We heal from within.
What's so amazing about the body is that on a minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour basis, every second we're alive, the body is trying its ultimate to repair and remove and rejuvenate and heal. The powers that keep us healthy and young are much greater than the powers that age us. The problem is this protective armor, this amazing power is destroyed because Americans have withheld these fuels, the phytochemicals and nutrients the body needs for its self-healing powers to be fully manifest. So built into our genetic code, built into the DNA of every single cell, are mechanisms which try to purify that cell and restore itself to normalcy, the DNA code that it was born with. Any damage to that code, any damage to the cytoplasm of the cell, we have mechanisms, we have free radicals which chew up waste. But if free radicals aren't controlled and they become excessive, it can create disease.
What a free radical is chemically, it's any atom or molecule that has unpaired electrons in its outer orbital. That doesn't mean much to most of us. Basically what it is, it's a very reactive particle. And when it bounces around inside of the cell, anything it touches, it burns or oxidizes. We call this oxidation. So if these little particles hit the membrane of the cell, they burn the membrane. If they touch the DNA, they damage the DNA. If they touch the enzymes in the cell, they damage the enzymes. The number one source of free radicals is metabolism within the cell. During the process of making energy, about 3 to 5% of the oxygen that goes into making energy is diverted to making free radicals. And these can be very damaging. It's just an unfortunate aspect of life. Anything that increases metabolism increases free radical generation. Things like inflammation or infection, extreme stress, they all dramatically increase free radical generation. And all of these things produce increased disease incidence.
We have cellular organelles which process waste, and we have other parts of the cell that are sentinels, which search for anything that's wrong with the cells and try to fix it before damage can occur. In other words, people don't respect enough the ability of the body to protect themselves. We don't have to walk around with the fear of dying of a heart attack at any moment. You should be free to go out there and run for a bus, ski down a ski slope, sprint to first base. You don't have to worry you're going to have a heart attack. But Americans have to worry. That fear is so unnecessary. If they would merely live within the biological laws that govern human existence. That we're designed to be disease-proof. Heart disease isn't normal. Americans see it as a normal consequence of aging, this atherosclerotic process, for example. Rather, you had to work hard to earn those diseases. You had to really deviate tremendously from the lifestyle and diet that we've been designed for by nature or God. When we adopt a diet made of these wondrous natural foods with all these protective phytochemicals, it allows the body's natural tendency to maintain normalcy and to maintain the youthful state of its blood vessels. It allows it to do what it's meant to do. It's not that these nutrients are anti-heart disease or anti-cancer. It's more or less that cancer or heart disease was never in the design of the system. That's not what's supposed to happen. It's just if you hit yourself with a hammer, every day you keep smashing yourself, you're going to develop a problem. Our bodies can't be disease-proof if we abuse them. They're only disease-proof if we don't abuse them. So the real question is, how do we not abuse our body so its natural, miraculous tendency towards self-healing is able to function in a normal fashion? And when we allow our bodies just to function normally, normal people don't get heart disease. That's an abnormal state that a person had to earn through a lifetime of eating a diet style that's not designed for our species.
We live in a day when sickness, disease, and obesity are considered normal. And yet, these diseases that we're suffering from and dying from today were hardly in existence 100 years ago. But there is a reason, and that reason is we are eating foods that are creating these physical problems. And the physical problems we are experiencing are merely the body reacting to the wrong foods.
What has eluded people up until recently is the major thing that they're doing wrong, and that is that they're fueling themselves improperly. They're taking in the wrong kind of food. The kind of diet that people live on is such a serious burden to their body that it protests with all kinds of illnesses. The blood pressure goes up, the cholesterol goes up, the triglycerides go up, the blood sugar goes up, the joints ache, they get fat, they get constipated, they get indigestion. Why? Because it's the wrong fuel. Throughout most of history, people were trim and healthy and hardworking, and they lived on simple plant-based diets, except on special occasions, on holidays, on festivals. The common person could only afford to do this once in a while. However, in every society there were some rich people. And these rich people, they came to the party and they said, "Oh, this is so much fun. I'd like to do this every day." And so they could afford it. So they went up the hill to their castle and they had the festival for breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week. And do you remember what these aristocrats and kings and queens looked like? They looked like Americans. That's what they looked like. We've developed the richest diet known to humankind. And that diet has been available to everybody, even if people are poor. It's the cheapest food available. It's king and queen food. Back then, they used to serve it on silver platters. These days, we serve it between styrofoam leaves, but it's basically the same kind of food. White bread, meat, grease, sugars, and that kind of rich food makes people fat and sick. Always has, always will.
The biggest health challenge that we're facing right now in westernized and industrialized countries is heart disease. In the United States, we have 4,000 heart attacks every single day, and rates in other countries are very, very similar. Our second cause of death is cancer, and there's no mystery that smoking is linked to lung cancer. If we can take smoking out of the equation, we're going to lick that disease almost entirely. What's been really striking is that the other very common forms of cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer in men, colon cancer, uterine cancer, have links with diet that perhaps 2 or 3 decades ago we wouldn't have guessed. Diabetes is something that's more and more common than ever before. In Western countries, it seems to be triggered by increased body weight, but also by the high-fat diets that are so common. The good news is it's not a one-way street. If a person has developed diabetes, they can get rid of it in many cases. I'm speaking here of the type 2 or adult onset form of the disease. It's an epidemic in Western countries. We can change that. High blood pressure is more and more common year after year after year. And high salt diets may contribute, but high fat, meaty diets are probably a bigger contributor. They change the viscosity of the blood, or the thickness of the blood, making it harder and harder for the heart to push that blood through the system. Well, we can change that too. If we take the diet and change it to a significant degree, about 3/4 of people can come off their medications. And when you check their blood pressure, it's actually lower than when they were on medications. If we don't tackle this epidemic, though, high blood pressure contributes not only to heart disease, but to strokes, sometimes which can be very dramatic and very sudden, where a blood vessel bursts in the brain and suddenly a person loses the ability to speak, to walk, and from that situation recovery is difficult, and it takes a very great long time.
When properly fueled, our body is almost disease-proof. Right now we have a nation suffering the effects of a disease-causing diet. We have 54% of Americans die of heart attacks and strokes. and about 35 to 38% dying of cancer. This doesn't have to be.
People today are consuming almost 100 pounds of fat per year, 170 pounds of refined sugar, plus all kinds of refined and processed foods.
Many of the degenerative diseases we associate with aging, such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, diabetes, are associated with iron accumulation. This would be a reason you'd want to reduce or stop the intake of beef, because the absorption of iron from beef is enormously high. You absorb about 90 to 95% of the iron from beef. This is particularly worrisome in terms of heart attack and stroke. We know the higher intake of beef, because of its high iron intake, increases your risk of strokes, heart attacks, arteriosclerosis. Another reason is because most of the meat products, the animals are treated with antibiotics. They use steroids on them. It's been found that this is absorbable in the human digestive system. And also, animals are the subject of numerous diseases themselves, many of which are viral diseases. We know that people that handle meat in slaughterhouses have increased lymphoma and leukemia rates. People that consume a lot of beef and drink a lot of milk and cheese products have a higher incidence of leukemia and lymphoma. So these viruses are transmissible to humans and may be responsible for numerous diseases, not just cancer. So I think taken together, all of these things, the high fat intake, the high iron intake, and the transmissible viruses, the pesticides, the hormones, and steroids being used on the animals, take all that together and you really have a rather dangerous situation.
The largest contribution of saturated fat in the American diet comes from dairy products. So we put that, and these foods are held in such high esteem in America, that is, dairy and animal products. And they're loaded with these disease-causing, they're literally foods that contribute to the problems we face as Americans, heart attack and cancer. More than 1,500 studies establishing that link, which is more, I think, well established than the link between cigarette smoking and lung cancer, involving the work of literally tens of thousands of nutritional researchers and scientists. Yet, people think we need those foods because we have to get adequate or complete proteins. And the truth is that the broccoli has more protein than a steak. 100 calories of sirloin steak has about 5.4 grams of protein. 100 calories of broccoli has about 11.2 grams, almost twice as much as the steak. How did the hippopotamus, rhinoceros, elephant, giraffe, and gorilla get so big? The cow didn't eat another cow. The cow ate the grass. There's no ability in animals to be able to make protein or amino acids out of the air or from the sun. They only can get it from eating the plant foods. Even the tiger or the lion that ate the zebra or the gazelle got their amino acids or muscles from the grasses that the zebra or the gazelle ate. The lion didn't make it out of the air. Green grasses made the lion. In other words, all protein on the planet stems from the action of sunlight on plants. When we eat those proteins, and many vegetables are more than 50% of calories from protein. They're high protein foods. We've been brainwashed from the media and the food industry. This collusion between the food industry and government over the last 50 years, advertising to us scientific information that's incorrect, advertising us with the 4 basic food groups, which are merely 4 food myths, really as a political and social and economic benefit to certain food industries. The next grouping of food is processed foods. Pasta, bread, bagels, salad oil, mayonnaise, donuts, cookies, crackers, rice cakes, soft drinks, breakfast bars, breakfast cereals, all these things Americans eat. Those foods are also low nutrient, high calorie foods. They've had the goodness processed out of them. They don't have the phytochemicals, bioflavonoids, essential fatty acids and nutrients we need for normal nutrition. How do people think? How do you Americans think that you're going to get what nature or God designed for us to have when we make 95% of our diet from these foods that don't contain the nutrients we need? So it's no surprise that disease is ubiquitous, that we all die prematurely of these diseases of nutritional stupidity or nutritional ignorance. It's common sense.
Not only is the standard American diet the wrong fuel, but it's loaded with chemical toxic additives. For instance, the animal products today, they add antibiotics, they add growth hormones, and the preserved foods, the processed foods, the foods that come in containers contain not only preservatives, but coloring agents and emulsifiers and flavorings, all toxic to our body. The average American puts into their body in 1 year over 12 pounds of these chemical additives.
Yeah, unfortunately, since 1945, when they discovered that these excitotoxin food additives like MSG, what they do is they enhance the taste of food. So you can have food that normally would taste bad and you can add MSG to it and it's delicious. Once the food manufacturers discovered that, they began to put MSG or like products in virtually all processed foods. So we know that there's quite a few categories now. They disguise the names of them. For instance, you can use hydrolyzed vegetable protein, which is an extract of protein that uses an acid in an alkali bath to extract the glutamate in high concentrations. If you see something that has hydrolyzed vegetable protein on it, it's very dangerous. That has been tested as the hydrolyzed vegetable protein. It produces the very same brain damage we see with glutamate. Also, they use names like natural flavoring, soy protein extract, whey protein extract, hydrolyzed protein, textured proteins, broth. All of these things are disguised names for substances that have very high glutamate levels in them, and they will produce damage to the brain and should be avoided.
Our body is a living organism comprised of living cells, designed by God to be nourished with living food. When you look at the rest of the animal creation, every animal in the wild eats its food in a natural raw state as served up by nature. Only man takes the natural that God provides in nature, and before he puts it in his body, puts it on a fire and cooks it, destroying most of the nutritional value. If we're going to reverse this disease cycle and get rid of all this sickness and obesity, we must change what we eat, from the standard American diet of a meat-based, sugar dessert, highly processed and refined diet, to one of living foods. Living foods are what provide the body with the living nutrients. The foods such as raw fruits and raw vegetables and seeds and nuts. These are the foods that meet the cellular needs of our body.
Like salads and broccoli and string beans and artichoke hearts. You know, we make diets that are rich in these high nutrient foods. We see within a matter of days, people start to drop weight dramatically. They breathe better, they become less allergic, and the risk of disease starts going down immediately. It's the type of diet that we've been designed for.
The only thing that reduces disease rates in terms of heart attacks, strokes, and cancer is a large consumption of fruits and vegetables. If we look at the people consuming the most fruits and vegetables versus the least, their cancer rates, their heart attack rates, their arteriosclerosis rates, hypertension, diabetes is all less. The people that consume the most animal products have the greatest incidence of all of these diseases.
And the bottom line is this. It's not as if we haven't had time to study it. When we look at people who follow plant-based diets, whether it's a pure vegan diet, a totally vegetarian diet, or various kinds of vegetarian diets, there's simply no question. They're thinner, they live longer, they have less heart disease to start with if it occurs, they are in a position to reverse it. Their cancer rates are much lower. If they develop cancer, their ability to survive it is better. And you know what? When we actually measure how many times do they need to take medications, how often do they need to get that pill bottle refilled, we find that they are on a lot less medication. They need medical care much less too. Hands down, that's a healthy diet.
We started on the diet in April of 1993, shortly after we met George and Rhonda Malkmus. And the reason that we did it is because I had heard Rhonda's story of how she got rid of her arthritis. And I had had psoriatic arthritis for 15 years and was taking a number of non-steroidals. In fact, had started with lots of aspirin and gone from there, and was finally at that time on methotrexate, which is the drug in the chemotherapy family. And so when we heard her story that she was able to get rid of her arthritis, I thought to myself, I can do that. So we tried it for 3 months, and we did a lot of raw foods and took the meat out of our diet immediately. And in 3 months, all my arthritis was gone, and I'd had it for 15 years, and we were pretty excited about that. Meantime, Dick was doing...
I started on the diet 5 years ago. I started mostly out of desperation. I was in the hospital with uncontrollable asthma and reoccurring anaphylactic shocks. The doctors were very clear that if I continued to have them, I would die. But I was reacting so much to all the drugs, it was apparent that I would probably die anyway. I started the diet and quickly began to improve. Within a month, I was off most of my medicines. Within 6 months, I was off all of my medicines, had lost 20 pounds. Although it took 2 years to totally recover from asthma, it was a journey well worth it. Along with that, I recovered from arthritis as well and lost 55 pounds.
In January of this year, after several months of deep depression and almost taking my life, I decided that I wanted to live, and so I began to look into the Hallelujah Diet program. I went on the Hallelujah Diet program in January of this year. Not totally, but I did begin to do some of the basic things like purchasing a juicer, drinking distilled water, and exercising. And as a result of just making a minuscule attempt at this program, I was able to notice that my diabetes has leveled off. My blood sugars has now plummeted back down into the nearly safe range, and I feel 1,000% better.
See, last year about this time, I realized that over the last 10 to 15 years, even though I'd been a vegetarian, a lacto-vegetarian for 30 years, I was up to 240 pounds, and I was taking 3 different medications for my stomach and high cholesterol. I prayed that I would have a guidance on what to do. I was blessed to hear about the Hallelujah Acres diet. Instead of immediately deciding I would change overnight, I just added some carrot juice and barley green every day, started eating more salads. And the cravings I had for the things that were ruining my health, namely a lot of chocolate and a lot of pizza, were reduced, so I was not dependent on my willpower to make the change that has come about in my life. So what I could say is that a year later now, instead of weighing 240 pounds, I weigh 180 pounds. Instead of taking medicine like Propulsid, which has killed 100 other middle-aged men, instead of taking Lipitor for high cholesterol and another medicine for reflux, I don't have reflux anymore. I don't have high cholesterol anymore. I sleep like a baby without any heartburn, and I'm symptom-free. The biggest challenge I have right now is remembering to get a belt that doesn't go around my body 1.5 times.
If you would like to experience a healthy body, trim and full of energy, then what you need to do is change what you eat from the standard American diet of a meat-based, sugar, dessert, highly processed and refined food diet to a plant-based diet. You can do it in 2 ways. You can slowly eliminate some of the worst foods and add some of the good foods, or you can just jump into it with both feet, as many people have done, and quickly experience the wonderful benefits of this healthy diet. I trust that what you heard today from these health professionals will motivate you to make a diet change in your life so that you can experience the wonders of a miraculous self-healing body. Here at Hallelujah Acres, we have such a program. I personally made the diet change we've been sharing with you today over 25 years ago, and it eliminated all my physical problems I had then and has kept me sickness-free ever since. Tens of thousands of others have made this diet change and gotten well also. And so we commend the Hallelujah Diet and Lifestyle to you. May God bless you.
You know, you'll be amazed at the benefits that you get from our God-given healing properties if you just release them with good food and some clean habits. It's the most powerful medicine there is. If you could package it and put it in a pill and sell it, it would be the most profitable medicine that anybody has ever devised, because of the good it does. But because it requires 5 pounds of food every day, or 1 to 5 pounds of food, and some walking shoes, it's tough to get people to buy into it. But when they do, they will be able to enjoy the health that they deserve.
The proper diet is well documented in one of the oldest books ever written, the Holy Bible, from Genesis 1:29. And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree, in the which is the fruit of a tree bearing seed. To you it shall be for meat. The testimonies in this program are just a few of the tens of thousands Hallelujah Acres has received over the years by those who have discovered their own miraculous self-healing body. If you would like to learn how the Hallelujah Acres diet and lifestyle can improve the quality of your life, you can contact us by writing to Hallelujah Acres, P.O. Box 2388, Shelby, North Carolina 28151. Or call us at 704-481-1700. You can visit our website at www.hacres.com.